Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about the women who are reshaping our world. Coming up, as we mark International Women's Day, how young feminists are now rewriting the rule book when it comes to campaigning for equal rights. And an example of that, the French women who use humour along with fake beards to fight inequality. Also, a famed basketball academy in Senegal finally opens its doors to girls. For a new generation of young women, feminism is no longer a dirty word. In recent months, 20 and 30-somethings around the world have mobilised for feminist causes, whether it's to defend abortion rights in Spain, end sexual violence in India, or call for the end of topless photos in British newspapers. Elena Casas takes a look at what's being described as the third wave of feminism.
Hundreds of young women take to the streets of Paris, proud to call themselves feminists. They're protesting against new restrictions on abortion in Spain, fearing a rollback of women's rights could happen here too.
There are a lot of people in this country who have that idea in their heads. So our aim is to say what we think and not put up with a rollback of rights that we fought so hard to get.
Recent public anger, stirred up by right-wing groups over gender education in schools, has added to a feeling women's rights are under threat and mobilised young feminists. They're also increasingly vocal over issues such as equal pay and street harassment, as in this parody video made by a French filmmaker that shows women harassing a man. Or the website Everyday Sexism, which encourages women to share their experiences. They're also motivated by inequalities at work.
There are a certain number of women who grew up with the idea that we're already in an equal society, and then they arrive in the workplace and discover things aren't equal for men and women, and then they get involved in campaigning on this issue.
But they still have a long way to go. Here in France, women earn almost 25% less than men for doing the same job and find employers won't help them balance their careers with childcare. Writer Anne-Marie Slaughter says change in the workplace can't just come from women, it's got to come from men.
I strongly believe that the next phase of the women's movement has to be a men's movement. A growing number of men who are equal caregivers, so they and their wives or they and their partners are both breadwinners and caregivers, are finding the same stresses and the same trade-offs.
And feminism is no longer the privilege of women in the West. In the developing world, they're also standing up for their rights, as here in India, where a series of high-profile rapes brought thousands onto the streets to call for a change in attitudes. But the international women's movement still lacks many figures in positions of power, and who would be better than the President of the United States?
And that report from Elena Casas. Now, le barbe is French for beard. It's also a colloquial French expression which means enough is enough. And it's the name of a feminist group here in France who don false beards and make it their job to infiltrate high-level, male-dominated corporate and government meetings. Cleverly using humour, the group will then read out a statement congratulating the men on their supremacy. And joining me here in the studio today, behind their beards, are group members Florence Pellissier and Gladys Bernard. And to the both of you, thanks for joining us. And do you feel free now to remove those beards? Yes. I just want to ask you, when you don those beards and you enter those shareholding meetings or, corporate meetings and such, how do you feel?
Well, even though we are completely legal in being there, since usually if you go to a shareholders meeting, we own the shares, so we are perfectly entitled to being there. We are aware, nevertheless, that we are gate crashing the event. So, of course, we feel a bit nervous and butterflies in the stomach, but it's still exhilarating.
But wearing those beards, does it give you an extra sense of strength?
Yes, maybe, because we see the fright in the eyes of the men of power. We interrupt their game, and we decide now that we are going to take the microphone. So it's we are frightened, but we have a sense of power too.
What would you say to people who would describe such actions as cheap media stunts?
The thing is, what led us to start these actions was for me, it was watching actions of the beard, la barbe, because the absence of women in positions of power was something that we could not even see anymore. We were not really aware. So, of course, we use the media to try and show what really the meaning of our actions. But
what are the results of this?
The first results are to in the audience at the event that we are targeting, we create some sort of awareness of the issue. The first point of our actions is creating this awareness and making people really conscious that there is an issue. Unless you are aware that there is an issue to solve, you cannot take steps to solve it.
Okay, we'll hold it for a moment, because talking about women breaking through in the corporate world, the American business magazine Forbes released the 2014 list of the world's billionaires with a record number of women making this year's ranks. 172 women landed up on the list, up 25% since 2013, and a far more impressive 60% increase in the last 2 years. Still, it's important to stress that they only number slightly more than 10% of this year's 1,645 listees. Now, among those on the list is Facebook executive Sheryl Sandberg, the maker of Spanx, Sarah Blakely, and media mogul Oprah Winfrey. Florence, in your opinion, how much would the corporate world change if there were more women?
It is difficult to say exactly how it would change, and we do not pretend in our group that the presence of women in themselves would make things happen in a better way. But that's not quite the point here. We are defending the issue on a principle of equality, and what we know, though, is that if there were an equal number of men and women in companies, it would mean that in the processes of selection within the companies, within the corporations, we would know at that moment that these processes would really allow all talents to come to their full potential, which for the moment is not the case. And interestingly, from another point of view, I read in a newspaper over the last few months that in companies where there were a fairer share of women, they tended to be more profitable, which would go to show that indeed this allows all talents to be more fully realized.
And moving on, for 10 years, the Seed Academy, the only school of its kind in Senegal, offers intensive basketball training along with academic programs for boys. But for the first time last year, the academy opened its door to girls. And it's not just about shooting hoops. The goal is to win a scholarship to an American university.
For students of the Seed Academy in Western Senegal, life is dominated by study and basketball. And for the first time, this academic year, the girls here are also being given a shot at the big time. Aged between 16 and 19, they train hard for 6 days a week in the hope of one day playing in the United States.
We're motivated to be in the academy, and we're ready to make sacrifices to follow one of our dreams, which is going to the US to continue our studies and our sport.
The school, based in the city of Thiès, has been open to boys since 2003. One former student currently plays in the NBA. Around 40 have gone on to study in American universities. Following heavy demand from girls eager to join, a female course was set up in September. Like the boys, the 18 players get to study in the city's top further education college, and all fees are paid for. The school is entirely financed by private donations, mostly from the US.
Seul le travail paye. Only work pays, so we expect them to work hard here, but also at school and at home, to have certain values in life.
The students stay either at home or with host families. It's a busy timetable and distractions are not tolerated. To keep their place, good academic results are essential.
It's all a way of showing the girls that you can achieve as much as men. That's very important. They've seen that women can succeed at basketball too internationally, and here they can study and at the same time pursue their passion.
The Seed Academy's links with American colleges offers the potential for scholarships and for those with the talent, maybe even a professional career. And with Senegal's women having won 10 African basketball championships, double that of their male counterparts, there's every reason for these students to aim high.
Gladys, for many women in the developing world who are still fighting for the most basic of rights, as we just saw there, you know, the right even to have an education, they must look at a group like La Barbe and think that that's the privilege, you know, that's the preserve rather of privileged young women in the West.
We have sisters in Mexico and in Chile now, sisters who are wearing a moustache and who write to us saying we were a source of inspiration. And they wear moustache to fight against sexism, machism, very common in these countries, and also to defend special rights and to protest against violence and so on.
And it's the same issue of empowerment. Also, also for these young girls, if we target top positions, society, of course, the glass ceiling is a problem for privileged women. But the idea of a role model and the representation that we can see on the media of women in high position of power has also an impact on the lives of little girls watching them on television.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks to both of you. That is, of course, Florence Pellissier and Gladys Bernard from La Barbe. And that's it for now. If you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, please head to our Facebook page, FransBankat/the51%, or send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far, and please do keep those comments coming in. Until our next program, bye for now.